I
Yeah.
think what you want to talk about kind of picks up some from what Travis was talking about.
I think it does too. I think it does too. I was coming from the perspective of this deeply relational love orientation and from a deeply personal narrative. So I really offered my essay in the form of a parable and an analogy speaking to the denominational mother that raised me and taking the opportunity to name to her in the form of sort of this analogous one conglomerate, one person, about how deeply and seriously I took the tradition in which I was raised and how proud I was to be raised in that tradition. And then to sort of begin to point out the things that I was attempting to line up from these beautiful practices like experiencing the Wesleyan quadrilateral and these practices of holy love, and how dissonant that became when I lined up my birthright as a beloved human being against, quote unquote, over against the belovedness of the queer community, and the dissonance that really began to creep in as I was trying to make sense out of the theology and the gospel and the formation of being raised in the Church of the Nazarene, to then somehow having to make the leap that there was some sort of holiness code or some sort of rules by which we got to measure who was in and who was out.
Yeah.
And as Travis, I think, pointed out to us really well, like what's that word? The fickleness by which the who's in and who's out and what we measure who's in and who's out gets stated, right? So I meant for this letter to be personal. I meant for this letter to be relational. And I meant to sort of get to the heart of saying, my birthright is love. And I was taught that in all of these deeply formational ways. And when I began to then compare that with playing the in and out game, I wasn't able to do that anymore. And so I think the other thing that I wanted to offer in this analogy and this parable of a letter was the degree to which the holiness sort of history has attempted to play referee, and the point at which folks begin to love their idea and assumptions and beliefs about God more than they love the experience of a relationship with God. And that's a fear-based reaction, right? If we've been taught deeply held beliefs about what's right and what's wrong, but we're not actually holding that into the light of God's presence and asking God to shed light according to what we believe is right and wrong, then we begin to love our assumptions and beliefs and limiting ideas about who God is more than we love God, which then of course translates easily into dehumanizing our neighbor. So let's see if there was anything else I wanted to name before seeing if you have any questions for me. Yeah, there was a line in there about choosing separation from love before we choose to love the people right in front of us. And I was also attempting to say that.
Oh, looks like we lost her. I'm sorry. Well, let's see.
I think I'm back. Can you
Okay,
hear
great.
me?
Yep, now I can. Sorry. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Okay. No, so sorry. Okay. I will pause and just see if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, I've got tons of questions, Libby. The question is, how much time do we have? This question of love just keeps coming back to my mind, and you're bringing it up. Travis brought it up. It's been brought up by others. Some folks, especially who are not affirming, will say something like, well, Jesus says, if you love me, you'll obey my commandments, which seems to kind of make love about setting the rule, following the rules, which you're criticizing here. Other times, love seems more about doing no harm, promoting what's healthy. How do you think about the differing ways people use the L word in this discussion about queer matters?
Yeah. I think that the point at which we lose sight of how God is asking us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves is sort of the place. There's no drawing lines. So I think I used this a couple of times in my essay, that we try to say that love is based on the greatest commandment, or love is based on how God shows up in the world. But if we are to say that God is love, and we are born into love, and we are imprinted by love, and we are made in the image of God, and that it is that image out of which we then evolve and develop as human beings, then we are not the ones who get to set the description of who's most lovable and who's in and out. So I don't think I did a very good job of directly articulating an answer in direct answer to your question, but we have to keep coming back to, yeah, if God is love, then. If God is love, then. And we just don't get to referee that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It makes me think of the hard distinction some people make between Christian love and the world's love. And it seems like what they have in mind there is Christian love will define as maybe self-sacrificial or doing what God calls us to do. And the world love is, they'll say, well, that's love of self, or that's sexual love. And they start breaking these things out into all these kind of forms. And I wonder if the notion of prevenient grace and God's love being present throughout all creation undermines those kind of strict categorization. And that's what I hear you saying when you talk about loving your neighbor and having, that extending. Is that something? I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here.
No, I think that's fair. And I think that we want the world to be dual. We want there to be simple lines between what's clear and what's unclear. We want there to be formulas for understanding how we're supposed to relate. And someone mentioned Brian McLaren earlier. I think it was Dana Hicks, about sort of the biases that we carry, right? And so that the minute we begin to say it's not as clear as black and white, queer and straight, then there's a quote unquote slippery slope all the way to the bottom of saying, well, then what's appropriate and what's right. But the point is that love being the boundary, love being the includer, love being the wooer and the drawer in, becomes the magnet by which we are able to say, and we will know the clarity of our actions if they are loving or unloving based on that rule, rather than we get to decide who's in and out.
Yeah, I like that, Libby. That's excellent. Great. All right. Well, I see our time is up, and thanks so much for your contribution tonight and to the book. Very good stuff. Thanks, Libby.
Thank you.